Pam Bondi, who is a complete loser and a tool.
Trump's full-on assault on free speech, weaponizing the FCC as outlined in Project 2025, is starting to rip MAGA apart at the seams.
You are tearing me apart, Lisa!
Now, I'm never one to praise the likes of Ted Cruz, but MAGA senators like him and influencers are coming out against Trump here.
No. Look, I like Brendan Carr. He's a good guy. He's the chairman of the FCC. I work closely with him. But what he said there is dangerous as hell. He threatens explicitly, we're going to cancel ABC's license. We're going to take him off the air so ABC cannot broadcast anymore. And I got to say, he threatens it. He says, we can do this the easy way, or we can do this the hard way.
Yeah.
And I got to say, that's right out of Goodfellas. That's right out of a mafioso coming into a bar going, nice bar you have here. It'd be a shame if something happened to it. But let me tell you, if the government gets in the business of saying, we don't like what you, the media, have said, we're going to ban you from the airwaves if you don't say what we like. That will end up bad for conservatives. It reminds me of, you and I are both fans of The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
J.R.R. Tolkien. It reminds me of like the Ring of Power.
And again, as a leftist from Texas, I'm never one to give Ted Cruz any kind of credit. But if Bernie Sanders is going to come out and say, good job, Ted, I might as well tell you guys about it. I don't often agree with Ted Cruz, Bernie Sanders says, but he's right about this. The U.S. government can't force Jimmy Kimmel or anyone else off the air because they disagree with what he says. Clearly, FCC Chair Carr hasn't read the Constitution. Kimmel should be reinstated. Carr should resign. And I think it's important to note here that Kimmel did not lie. He never made a statement that was incorrect. Even more Republicans are coming out against this. Here's former Republican Senator Jeff Flake.
Well, it's unbelievable to me that so-called conservatives and Republicans are okay with, those who say they believe in limited government, with the FCC, a government agency, telling basically, broadcast stations what they can broadcast and what they can't. Now, what kind of limited government is that? And I just have to say, my name is Jeff Flake. I come from Snowflake, Arizona. That's the town that I grew up in. And I'm less of a snowflake than that. I mean, that's, as a conservative growing up, that the legacy media is leaning liberal. You accept that. Talk radio leans, conservative. You accept that. But you don't use the arm of government to go in and dictate what they broadcast.
Even wacky Candace Owens came out against the administration, using this tragedy as an opportunity to crack down on free speech. Of course, her reasons for not liking these hate speech laws are a lot different than ours, but it's fun to watch two pieces of shit call each other stinky.
Pam Bondi, who is a complete loser and a tool, is trying to use the assassination of Charlie Kirk to lay the groundwork for hate speech laws in America. The very thing that Charlie was fighting against. They all just got right to work trying to pass laws. Well, Charlie Kirk is such, now we got to hate speech is something. Exactly what he's messaging me about that he doesn't want to happen. They're trying to use his death to justify. Listen to what Pam Bondi said to Katie Miller on her podcast. Take a listen.
There's free speech and then there's hate speech.
No.
And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie in our society.
Do you see more law enforcement going after these groups who are using hate speech and putting cuffs on people so we show them that some action is better than no action?
We will absolutely target you, go after you if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything. And that's across the aisle.
So to be clear, that's the feds telling you that they want to pass speech laws, which will basically just give them the full power to go after you for wrongthink.
Now, of course, I'm not an advocate for hate speech, but I do think that using the guise of hate speech as a way to crack down on your political operatives is definitely something that I'm glad people on the right are at least calling out, because clearly we are on the road to authoritarianism. And if you had listened to J.D. Vance 6 months ago, he'd have told you the same thing.
In Washington, there is a new sheriff in town. And under Donald Trump's leadership,
We may disagree with your views, but we will fight to defend your right to offer it in the public square, agree or disagree.
Cut to a couple of days ago, and J.D. Vance is hosting Charlie Kirk's show at the White House for some reason. And I don't know if it's just because he hasn't had a romp with a recliner in a while, but it seems like his tune has changed.
So when you see someone celebrating Charlie's murder, call them out. And hell, call their employer. We don't believe in political violence, but we do believe in civility. And there is no civility in the celebration of political assassination.
Oh, okay, so that's just the Vice President of the United States encouraging his base to call the employers of people who celebrated the death of Charlie Kirk and get them fired, even though celebrating death while deranged and absolutely something that I would never do is protected under the First Amendment, as confirmed a year ago by this conservative Supreme Court in a 9-0 ruling in favor of free speech. In this context, protecting, of course, the fucking NRA. Government officials cannot attempt to coerce private parties in order to punish or suppress views that the government disfavors. That is exactly what Brendan Carr at the FCC has done and said he would do when he wrote the chapter in Project 2025. Here he is in May, threatening to revoke CBS's license.
And over the years, the FCC has stepped back from enforcing that public interest obligation. I think the FCC should do what Congress wants us to do and enforce those laws. We're going to see where this investigation goes.
So are you threatening to pull their license? Wouldn't that be a pretty drastic step?
Well, it's not a threat. That's a penalty that is in the Communications Act, that if you don't...
But when was the last time the FCC pulled a broadcast license?
Yeah, it's been a long time, and I think that's part of the issue. If you step back, trust in the national mainstream media is at an absolute low right now. That's not just my view. Jeff Bezos himself did an op-ed where he said that. But what's really interesting is that actually local stations, local TV stations, have a lot of trust. And so the agenda that I'm trying to run at the FCC is to empower those actual local television stations to serve the public interest. Because what we've seen is you've got national news media, ABC, NBC, CBS, and they're exercising more and more control over those local TV stations. And I don't think that's a good thing for the country. So we're trying to reverse that.
Now, in response to this clearly illegal use of the soft power that the FCC has, Representative Jasmine Crockett from Texas has introduced the Free Speech Act of 2025. It aims to do these three things. The FCC cannot condition approval for mergers, licenses, or acquisitions on whether a company's speech aligns with the political views of the sitting president. Brendan Carr's entire argument hinges on the idea that criticism of the pasty pumpkin we call a president is somehow not in the national interest. Here's the second point. The FCC cannot issue rules or orders compelling companies it regulates, such as broadcasters, telecommunication firms, or internet providers, to adopt or suppress political viewpoints. This raises a pretty good point that we haven't yet seen how Trump and Carr are going to weaponize the FCC against telecommunication firms and, importantly, internet providers. But I'm sure they're cooking up something right now, so it's good to call that out. Here's the third point. The FCC must remain independent, safeguarding a level playing field for speech rather than serving as a political tool for any administration. It's sad that that has to be mentioned because the FCC isn't historically used as a political tool like this, but this is the America we find ourselves in today. Stay up to date on all the news that MAGA hates for you to hear by subscribing to Really American. I'm Tony Hinderman, and I'll catch you next time.